Hello everybody, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm very excited to talk about a short story by Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher. This story was originally written in the late 1830s. It was first published in 1839 in Burton's Gentleman magazine, and then a year later in 1840 it was published in Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque. The plot of the story is about an unnamed narrator who gets a letter from his friend Roderick Usher, who tells him that he has an illness and that wishes his friend to come and basically hang out with him to make him feel a little better, which he decides to do. So the story opens with the unnamed narrator first riding up and seeing the house of Usher from the distance, and then going in and meeting Roderick. Roderick, he continuously calls a hypochondriac. Roderick has a twin sister named Madeline, who is also ill, although the illness is never really described. Madeline, her illness is that she sometimes falls into death-like trances. So they basically hang out, and he tries to make Roderick feel better. And Roderick shows him his art. They read books together. Roderick has written a poem that is actually The Haunted Palace, an earlier of Poe's poems that he inserted into this story. And Roderick paints pictures of the house of Usher where the lake is glowing in front of the house. And Roderick is constantly kind of expressing these strange ideas he has. One of the most important is that he believes the house is alive, and he believes that this sentience that the house has achieved comes from the way that the bricks were laid as they were built, but also the vegetation that has grown over the bricks, specifically the fungus that is covering most of the house. So he believes that this house is alive. And he's constantly expressing these kind of ideas to the narrator that just keeps kind of referring to him as a hypochondriac. He only sees Madeline Usher one time, and that is just passing through a corridor. He sees her, and a few days later, after his arrival, she passes away, and he and Roderick entomb her in the crypt of the House of Usher in this strange cell with an iron door down a hallway that is coated in copper. And about 8 days pass, and Roderick is getting more dejected and more unhappy as time passes. And even the narrator is starting to feel anxious at all times, and he's having a hard time sleeping, like the house is kind of turning him into one of these Usher types. So one night, they're both up. Roderick comes into his room and decides to read a book to him, and he starts to read a book called The Mad Tryst. I don't know if this is a real book or not. I'll have to look it up. But the main character is Ethelred, and it is so brilliant the way that Poe structures this narrative, because as he's reading from this adventure story, the sounds that occur in the adventure story start occurring in real time in the house of Usher. So first he pounds on the door of this hermit's cottage, and they hear what they think is a pounding down below their room, which is where the crypt is. And then when he gets into the hermit's house, it turns out to be a golden castle with a dragon, and he fights the dragon, and he smites the dragon, and the dragon screams, and they feel like they can hear a scream from below them in the crypt. And then finally he goes further in, and there's a copper shield hanging on the wall, and it drops in the story and makes a loud sound, and they hear what sounds like a copper shield dropping in the House of Usher itself. Finally, Roderick admits in terror that he believes that she had only had one of her fainting fits. She had only gone into a death-like trance, and that they had basically entombed her alive. And at that moment, she breaks into the room, and there's blood all over her gown from her escape, getting out of the coffin, getting through this iron door. And she is enraged, and she jumps at Roderick, who dies from fright at that exact moment. And she dies from the bleeding and escape from the tomb. So both the ushers die right at that moment. And the narrator freaks out and runs out of the house and suddenly sees this flash of light behind him, and he turns around and the moon is shining through this crack that is going through the house of Usher from the top all the way down to the lake, and the house splits in half and the lake overtakes it. So we find that the fall of the House of Usher, the title, is specific to the Usher house literally falling down. But the great part about the title, and one of the cool literary effects that Poe uses throughout this story, is that the fall of the House of Usher can stand for the house literally falling, but also the fact that Roderick and Madeline are the last ushers in the line, and that their deaths are the end or the fall of the House of Usher, the line of ushers. Really beautiful title. And the concept of the house being sentient that Roderick talks about, and he believes it has to do with the laying of the stones and the vegetation covering the stones. We never really find out if the house is sentient or not, but the way Poe writes it, this to me is the earliest that I know of. If there's an earlier one, please correct me in the comments. The earliest that I know of where we get the concept that that the haunting of the house is a kind of sentience for the house. This is the original where the fall of the House of Usher, the House of Usher itself is one of the main characters, and this goes on through literature. We see it in Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. If you read the first part of The Haunting of Hill House, where it talks about the house as a living thing, it's incredible. And we also see it in Stephen King's The Shining, where the Overlook Hotel is a major character in that book. And I'm doing a reread of that in 2024, so I'll be talking about that, and also The Haunting of Hill House. Those are two books that are on my to be read list for 2024. So this is really the prose and the character of the house are the shining stars in this short story and really make it worth a read. And it's the type of story that you have to read slowly. You can't just read real quick while you're thinking about other stuff, because you'll miss so much. Poe, I think, was very, very strong in his prose, that every sentence holds so many important facts that it's difficult to just read quickly. I had to take my time with this and read it very slowly. The reason that I kind of thought back to the House of Usher and that I wanted to read it as kind of a close of 2023 is because, one, I talked about it a little bit when I talked about my top 10 horror novels, because I had, of course, The Shining and The Haunting of Hill House on there. But also because Mike Flanagan's recent miniseries that he put on Netflix that is based on the works of Edgar Allan Poe, and he used the House of Usher to be the frame story, and it was really brilliantly done. He made Roderick Usher and his sister Madeline make a deal with the devil that their line would be destroyed, but they would experience amazing success throughout their entire lives. And they had a bunch of children, not them together, but Roderick had children with different women, and those children all become different Poe stories. One does the Telltale Heart, one does the Black Cat, and so on. I like Mike Flanagan stuff, and I think that was a really well done series. And I like that he took the House of Usher to be the frame story for that. All right, that'll be my last video for you guys for 2023. I'm really looking forward to doing a ton of reading in 2024 and making a lot more videos. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. We've got a lot more coming in 2024. Thank you so very much.